this group. It all has to happen together. One of the themes around, I think, the concept of building to win, looking to the future, and having, being comfortable in uncomfortable conversations is thinking about the places where our partners on the center will be possibly going in slightly different directions after the election on certain tactics or certain issues. And one thing that, in other gatherings we've workshopped a little bit is the concept of center of the party versus center of the country. And so there are people that are moderate, centrist, pragmatic, whatever you want to call it, who are really focused on making sure that the center of the party can get back to a place where the overall party brand is healthy, where the party is working well. And that is vital work. I think for those who saw Simon Bazelon's presentations on deciding to win, it is not the left that took everything over, right? It was in part a center of the party, again, not the center of the country, that, going back to the rarity of swing districts, right? Through gerrymandering, through other types of polarization, through the attention marketplace, through the money marketplace, to what the senator was talking about, of pressure tactics, was not in a position to build and win within the party. So there will be organizations and people that are firmly focused on the 50-yard line, in Adam Frisch's phrase. And there'll be others in the 25-yard line. And those are pretty different places. The middle of the country and the middle of the party are growing apart a little bit. But we can't come apart ourselves, right? We're all rowing in a similar direction here. And part of this in these conversations is about being transparent, being uncomfortable, and building up some of that confidence to say, hey, actually, we're going to go a little hardcore on this. Right? We're more 50-yard line right now. We might have to go on there 47, 46, right, with the way that the Senate and the Electoral College look. And like Heath Schuler, we got to believe. So, summing up, getting through this challenge, overcoming this paradox, building up those muscles together, I think just a few guiding thoughts for us as we try to build. Never hit a Democrat to your right. Easy to say, makes sense, pretty hard to do. But I think that is something, to paraphrase, I think Reagan, right? We cannot be hitting the Democrats to our right because some of them are going to get pushed all the way out. And holding the line on that, I think, is important. Second, and this was a kind of sub-critique from last year, if we have critiques with the left, right, we need to show those, not just say those, and do it objectively, and focus on building ourselves up. And then third is put your hands on the flywheel. We are so grateful for all the partners that have co-sponsored this the last couple of years, and particularly this year. None of us live in DC, as you know. And the advice, the mentorship, and that feeling of community, right, gives us the energy and the focus to keep doing it. And we can see, and we see new groups starting, we see new people coming in. Nothing energizes us and all of us more than that. So I'll just touch on one quick example of that. Luke Warford from Agave. He's very handsome. He's tall. He's still sitting, though, which is ridiculous because I'm talking about him. Stand up, Luke. Come on. There we go. Fresh off his honeymoon. Beautiful, man. He runs a state-level project in Texas and has been hyping up Bobby Polito as much as any hype man can and demonstrating all of those things that I just laid out. Right? He's a builder. Right? He's not whacking people. He's showing a path, and he's connecting other people to get in and build that and try to work on Texas, which I think we all think is pretty important. And Grayson, who's on the Jamie Yeager team, founding board member of Carolina Forward, another amazing state-level organization. We heard from many from New Deal and Wayback Pack and others today. So, I think we can bring those guys up here, Texas, North Carolina, getting ready for the next panel. And I'm going to show off my Jamie Yeager hat. We got some merch out there. People got to pick stuff up and be proud of Jamie. But also, Jamie's running in the district that Heath Schuler represented. And this is that kind of full cycle, pulling things forward, 1989, 2006, keeping it going, building up. We good? Chairs? All right. Get chairs. And maybe we'll call up Lauren, and Jamie, and Bobby. You guys want to pull up? There we go.
Yes, sir.
All right, for those who don't know me, my name is Lauren Egan. I am a reporter at The Bulwark, where I cover the Democratic Party. And I write a newsletter about the Democratic Party called The Opposition, so you all can go subscribe right now at thebulwark.com. Little shameless plug, but I'm really excited to be here today with you guys. You're some of the most interesting Democrats running in congressional races this cycle. For those who don't know, Bobby is running in the 15th district in Texas against Monica de la Cruz. It's an R+7 district, and Jamie's in Western North Carolina in the 11th district, which is R+5. I want to start out with, you both kind of pitch yourselves as more moderate, conservative, centrist type Democrats. I'm curious what that actually means to you and whether that's something you see voters responding to in your district. And we can start here with you, Jamie.
Okay, is this thing working? Okay, good. Thank you for having us up here. And yeah, I'm from Western North Carolina, basically the 16 westernmost counties right there in the Southern Appalachian region is basically it. I'm a fourth generation farmer. My family's been there for over 100 years. My wife and I have spent the last 25 years on our farming operation building a regenerative agriculture, sustainable meat company. We work with a bunch of other farms and built a brand of meat company, and basically have been doing that for a long time. And the question about how do we differentiate ourselves? And I think when people, when I was considering this campaign, I've got deep roots in the community. I know folks all over the community, and I think people associate me less in the context of partisan politics and all that stuff. And I associate myself less with partisan politics and all that stuff, and really just see myself as a neighbor, a farmer, a community member, a business owner, on the order of operations like who I am. Those are the main things that I lean into. And I think that's just true for me. And the key word being that I'm running for the House of Representatives, and the House of Representatives is people that represent their community. And so to me, what is good for Western North Carolina is what drives my political beliefs and how I can be helpful for the community, as opposed to sort of looking at this all through that political lens, which turns so many people off.
Well, I was a singer for 30 years before I decided to run for Congress. Pretty much the people down in the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas on the border, kind of politics is in between the 40-yard lines. It's always been very blue doggish. I would probably say more culturally conservative than the average area. Religion is big Catholics, lots of Catholics. And so you walk into a house and you'll probably see a cross in every house. It's just that way. So I think it just depends on the issues, right? Like, my district is one of the poorest in the nation. One of the poorest in the nation. So if we're talking about issues helping people, the people there, they're really gettable. They're fine with that. But if you start getting with stuff that is more social justice, that can go against maybe what they perceive in their religion, then we start having a problem. And I think it just depends on the issue as to where, why I'm a moderate. Guns are a big thing down there, right? It's South Texas. And my oldest son's name is Remington. Not a joke. He's 28 years old, right? And so I'm a competitive long-range shooter. I've competed at the World Championships in sporting clays. And so, they're a part of our lives. And I think when you talk about gun control down there, people say, like, look, just keep it out of the hands of the people that shouldn't have them. And that's where the focus should be, but don't say you're going to ban. You know, I mean, full disclosure, I have 11 AR-15s, right? And that I actually shoot them and use them. But I'm also a father, right? So I also know what it's like to get a phone call when there's a false alarm that there's a school shooting at your son's school, and I know what that feels like. So we really have to bridge that gap, and I don't really feel that bans, when they talk about banning fracking, that's a problem because a lot of the people in my district, those are their jobs that they feed their families with, right? They say, you're going to ban that? Like, you're going to ban AR-15s? They look at that as, like, extreme, right? So I do feel like we have to look for solutions to make sure that we keep those guns out of the hands of disturbed individuals, a lot of times young men. I think our background system sucks. It's terrible, the way it's designed. But I think we just have to find solutions. And more importantly, I think the people down there, people have become disillusioned with both parties. But the people, what I often hear is they say, I just want you to fight for me and for us. I don't want your loyalty to be with your party. And will you break with your party if it means defending us? That's what they want to know.
Yeah.
I ask that a lot. I get asked that a lot.
You guys are both through your primary phase, obviously, but I think one of the hard things about running as a Democrat in really tough districts like this is how do you earn the trust and loyalty and the support of your liberal base? I'm thinking for you, Jamie, like a city like Asheville, which has a lot of big activist community. How do you think about earning their trust while also staying true to yourself and staying, not adopting any positions that could get you in some trouble in the general election? And Liam brought up Heath Schuler. When he ran in 2006, I think that primary electorate, there was a lot more people in that primary that would consider themselves a conservative Democrat. Fast forward 20 years, and your primary electorate is looking more and more liberal. So you guys are through the primary phase. Obviously, this is still something that you kind of have to apply to the general election, but talk to me a little bit about how you thought through that.
I didn't get strategic about it all much. I was mostly just like, I am who I am. A lot of people in this community know who I am. And if there's still a spot in this party for me, let's go learn and see. And in some ways, I feel like kind of leaning in to just y'all know me. I've been around this community for 48 years now. I went to high school here. I built our business here. And in some ways, I was lucky because we do a lot of business in Asheville, so I know a lot of folks all over Asheville, and that wasn't too big a deal. And I didn't get pressed too hard on stuff, which was good. And in general, I think that if people are always trying to sort of litmus test me, I'm always like, that's actually really unhelpful in all scenarios, because we're here to be leaders and to learn and to become familiar with this community. And the main job that I have is to go out and learn from folks and see what's going on in the community, because, to nationalize all these sort of questions and make them the sort of core differentiating point or place where people are going to make their decisions, I'm like, you can choose to make that choice, but that's not the kind of campaign I'm going to run, and you probably shouldn't vote for me. And just being really clear with people, being upfront, being friendly, being generous with ideas and being nice. I feel like mostly that worked. I mean, you're going to get some criticism, no question, from all those folks sometimes. But hey, welcome to politics. As my mom says, Jamie, if you're not getting some hate or some criticism from somebody, it means you're not doing anything that matters. And so I was like, all right, thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Bobby, what was your experience? And I know you had a primary challenger that was kind of pitching herself as the more progressive lefty in that. So what was that experience
Yeah,
like?
it's several things, right? The one thing that I've learned campaigning is when you go talk to normal voters, it's not what you see on social media. 100 people on social media can look like and appear to be at 10,000. And most of the time when they criticize you, it's bullying, right? And they can be really mean. Most of the time it comes from your own side too, right? And what I learned is I think a lot of people running for office succumb to that pressure and that bullying on social media into thinking that that's the electorate, and it's really not. Now, I will tell you, I have run a campaign based on respect. And you're going to hear me mention that word several times here, because when you talk to somebody that disagrees with you, as long as they know that you respect their point of view, even if you don't agree with it, they're okay. If you're dismissive of them, and I saw this up here with he said, you know, you got to learn from them. I stood my ground. When I ran my primary race, I did not shift. I'm running the exact same race right now that I ran in the primary. And I said, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may, right? And so I haven't had that much of a problem, even talking to really progressive people. Because I will be honest, there are areas of agreement that we have. And my thing to them is understand that at this time right now in our democracy, or lack thereof, right? I think the most important thing is winning that gavel. That's the most important thing. And if you're somebody that cares about our country, you can't vote for a rubber stamp Republican right now that will let this president go unchecked. And so, yes, I don't believe in pandering. I don't like to pander. I think we've made that mistake several times. I think we could probably learn from different things when, you know, Kamala Harris said that she got gender-affirming care for prisoners and things like that. That was very hurtful, and that happened actually when she was trying to kind of pander. And I don't think that that's a good thing overall for what we're doing, right? And I'm not trying to criticize a fellow Democrat. I'm just saying that I don't think that's helpful.
And I'll add one
Go
thing
ahead.
is that, like, you know, to me, following up the conversation about, like, you know, you're not pandering, you're just hanging out, and you are respecting. I think that was well said, Bobby.
Thank
about
you,
just
Jamie.
being respectful and just being like, this is who I am, this is what I believe. But at the end of the day, we got to go win. And to me, let's get focused on that. And then I always go back to them and say, and you have a job for me, and that's to go to convince all of your very progressive friends to come vote for me. Because it's more important that we just go win this thing and almost like give them a call to action and be like, go get it. I need your help. Let's go. And that gets people fired up.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what I'm hearing from you guys is that a lot of these challenges that we're talking about can really be overcome by being deeply rooted in the community, we overuse the word, but authentic. But, I mean, I'm still curious, like, what is the most challenging part about running with a D next to your name? And if there are things that the National Party could do, let's say, if you could pick one issue that the National Party could change on that would make it easier to win in really tough districts like yours, what would that be?
Jamie.
I think, you know, it is, yeah, for sure. You know, getting into this, I'm like, you know, I go out to rural places in Western North Carolina, and people are like, you're a Democrat? I'm like, yeah. I was out there in one of the counties Madison County up in a county north of us, a pretty rural place, and I went up there and talked to some of the more old-time folks. There's a lot of old-timer folks that were Democrats 20, 30 years ago. And my grandfather was in the U.S. House here in the 80s. So that's kind of helpful for me because I can go and say, and I'm using the exact same green color that he used as part of our campaign. And it's kind of cool because I can go out to Madison County and find some of those old-timers that are still in leadership roles and be like, I'm Jamie Clark's grandson. I'm just here to remind everybody that Democrats stand for working people, and that's all working people, and we're just going to simplify our message to that. And one thing I've learned kind of running a company is that if you have 10 different messages that are nuanced, you have no message at all. And so to me, you've got to have, you know, when you say what your mission is at Hickory Nut Gap, that's our business. I say, you know, if you got to say it over and over and over and over and over again, and when people start rolling their eyes, that's when you know that people are actually hearing you. And to me, the National Party has been so all over the place on so many ideas and so nuanced on everything that it's just like they just look like a puddle of mush. And that's a little bit hard to overcome, especially in a community like mine, where I have to go out and sort of resell this idea of the party as the party of working folks, which is at the core of who we are and always have been. And so to me, that's just kind of what I just go out there and remind people over and over and over again, that's who we are. and don't try to overcomplicate the conversation, and just be, authentic with that.
Geez, this is a great question. I'm looking at things through the lens of the Latino vote, because my district is 80% Hispanic. And as we saw in this last election, right, like pretty much the nation goes as the Hispanic vote goes, right? It was like 50-50, really divided. There's something that I think our party is lacking, is we have not really talked about an economic message. Where I'm from, we talk a lot about social justice, and that's important. But we don't talk in terms of the economy and economic message. The Hispanic people, especially where I'm from, we come from nothing. In many cases, the people that are there, for their first generation, they're actually making money and doing something with themselves. And I don't feel like we talk in terms of economics and economic progress and ownership. And we get our butts beat by the Chamber of Commerce Republican, where at least they talk about cutting your taxes, right? It's like one little thing, we'll cut your taxes. That goes so far when people are struggling to pay their bills. I feel like we have the right, qualities to be able to talk about an economic aspirational message, but we just don't do that. And I feel like we have to lead with that. That has to be something that we talk about. So when I'm talking to these people, I say one thing that unites us all in the Rio Grande Valley is family, because we always wanted all of us want our kids to do better than what we did. And for the first time in history, that's not happening. And so I really feel like our Achilles heel is that we don't talk in terms of that aspirational message. The last person to do that was Barack Obama. And he did it very effectively. And I think we need to have it.
You know, when I'm talking with staffers on some of these races in Trump districts, or folks over at the D-Trip, something I often hear that's really challenging in these races is, how do you criticize the Trump administration and the Republican Party without basically telling people that voted for him that you think that they're morons? I think this is something that Democrats are pretty sensitive to right now, especially because they've gotten a bit of a reputation for being scolds and talking down to voters. So how do you guys approach trying to draw a contrast with the Republican Party while also making sure you're keeping the door open for people that voted for Trump that you're trying to get to come over and vote for you as well?
We are, I think having a good biography, having somebody that people already know you is a good start, right? Where you're like, hey, I'm Jamie, I've been in this community a long time, you know me, not in this kind of political context, but in the sort of more as a community member. And sort of when I describe my reason for running, I say, I was frustrated with politics. I was frustrated with both political parties, but I am a patriot, and I love our country, and I want our country to do well. And even it's crazy, like whenever I even say that, so many liberals are like, you're a patriot? I'm like, yeah. I am. I love this country, and that's what I'm all about. And so I'm not gonna, And so I'm not gonna. We need a good, strong two-party system in this country, no question. And I feel like the Democratic Party needs a little help right now. It's not doing very well, and they're all like, yeah. And that's always a good way to connect, right? And I'm like, and my family's always been Democrats out here, and to me, Democrats always stood for working people. And that's the kind of message I'm bringing back to the party, and that's the message we're bringing to this campaign. And to me, we've got big, hard problems to solve in this country. And if you're a patriot and you care about this country, then you're willing to tackle those problems. And the key, words in the job description, House of Representatives, the idea is that we have lots of different ideas from all over the country, but that we actually go solve problems. And we haven't touched immigration in 40 years because it's more convenient as a political football to get power as opposed to trying to solve it. And like my friend Joe Deal, who's a farmer down in Macon County, said, Jamie, you and I could sit down for 3 hours and put together a decent, pretty good immigration policy. But the fact that we can't do that shows that our political system's broken. And to me, as a patriot, that's unacceptable. So if you're willing to get up there and work hard and try to earn people's trust, then let's sit down and have a conversation. I don't care what political party you're in. I don't care what ideology you're in. Let's have it out. But if you're just there to grift and get power and all that, you're not a patriot. We can move on and get out of here. So to me, that's been pretty effective. That's kind of how I tell that story.
You know, when I first decided to run, I came up with this campaign slogan, and I opened actually with it. I'm not Team Red and I'm not Team Blue. I'm Team You. My loyalty's with you. It's not with the party. And I think that resonated really well to a lot of people that voted red that also feel disillusioned with the promises that Trump made. Now, one thing that I don't do is I don't mention Trump very much in my campaign speeches. And I actually say, you know what? And I believe this. If you voted for Trump, I don't hate you. I don't even blame you. And they're like, really? You're a Democrat. Why are you saying that? I said, because we're literally all in informational bubbles right now. You're not seeing the things that I'm seeing because the system, the algorithms do not show you what I'm seeing, and I'm not seeing what you're seeing, right? And that's why grassroots campaigning and getting out there in the ground and talking to people is so important, because that's the only way we can break that algorithm and those informational bubbles. I never had a fight with somebody that voted for Donald Trump, and I always say I never vote for the guy, never have. I said, but it was a binary choice. And here's something else. I said, your candidate resonated more than our candidate. But that's the past, and I'm looking for the future. Do you care about the future? I do. I said, well then, vote for me, because now you have a candidate that you'll be excited to vote for. And I don't have any problem flipping them. They're fine. They understand, because they don't feel disrespected, right? It's respect. We do not want to disrespect. I'm from the rural areas, right? And everybody goes, oh, well, you know, my district is really rural. And they say, well, how are you going to break through these rural counties that just vote 80-20 Republican? And they go, maybe the economy's bad right now, so that's a good thing, right? They're going to vote Democrat. I said, let me tell you something about rural people. Us rural people have learned to live with less. Money is not our chief motivation. You know what our chief motivation is? It's respect. If you respect me, and don't try to change me, and just try to make my life a little better, I respect that. And they will vote for you. They will trust you. But if you come and try to go, hey, how's that economy going now, huh? Having trouble paying the gas prices? They will dig in, right. I promise you. And they will say, I don't care. Because if they feel like you disrespect them, they will never vote for you.
You know, coming out of the 2024 election, I think another big sort of takeaway in the Democratic Party, and certainly a huge conversation in the party over the last 2 years, has been the attention economy and, you know, how Democrats can break through online more. I think going viral and that kind of politics tends to favor the extremes. It's usually people on either end of the spectrum that tend to really break through the social media algorithms. So as someone who's more moderate, more conservative Democrat, not on the extreme, how do you guys think about attentional politics? And, you know, I think it probably really matters if you're running for president, if you're running maybe in a Senate race in a big state like Texas. But I'm curious if you think that even matters in a House race. Is retail politics still king? I mean, I know I saw you did a hot wings style video a couple of weeks ago.
Big mistake.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about, you know, what the thinking was there, and yeah, how you guys think about trying to get attention as someone who's not on the extreme.
That was a total surprise. That was not intentional on me, although I think some folks were scheming, and we were just at some party, and then they were like, come in the back room before you go. We got something to do real quick. And I'm like, what's this? And no, it wasn't a mistake. It was actually good, right? Mm-hmm. Because it got people's attention. And like my kids and all their friends were like, the hot wings video. And I was like, yeah. But like, so it clearly got attention with like, you know, when my kids start talking to me about stuff, I'm like, oh, we're getting the young people's attention. So that's always good. And I guess that's a good question, like how to be strategic with all that. And I really haven't thought about it a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, I just don't really I don't know. We just
maybe
do
there's
some
the answer.
videos, do what we do. I mean, I think by nature, like retail politics to me is much more comfortable and familiar. Like I would rather just go out and have lunch and talk to important people in the community that know people, and I feel like that's just the way I like to do business. I always joke like one of our business core values was relationships, and if people came to visit me at the farm, they were probably going to meet my mom, and that's how we like to do business. And if I come visit you, then maybe I'll meet your mom. You know, I feel like that's a lot of how Western North Carolinians operate.
Might be a little bit different for you.
It's completely.
Bobby's a
different.
celebrity.
I'm like the opposite of Jamie, right? Like, listen, I come from a business where attention is I've made my bones off of it, right? I mean, it's my life. So that's right in my wheelhouse, and we are absolutely crushing her on the attention economy. Our social media is really active, and it's getting lots of traction. When on primary night she called me a quinceañera singer, I did a video and said, hey, invite me to quinceañera, I'll show up and I'll sing. And we got in one day 1,000 invites, and up to today we've had 4,000 invites.
Wow.
And we've done already 40 quinceañeras. And let me tell you something that's really cool about this, because they average about 250 people per quinceañera, right? So the cool thing is that we actually send somebody, we go, we'd love to go, we want to go. Can you do us a favor? We're going to have somebody there that will ask people if they want to sign up. And we have had collected thousands of data on people that are registered voters, but just haven't really gone out to vote. And that's, and here's the other thing that really, why this is gold for us, is because when we walk in, I come in singing, about 65-70% of the people are with their phones, and they're streaming it, and they're sharing it on social media. And we are driving that algorithm fucking crazy. Okay? So the algorithm is basically promoting me, going like, this guy must be hot. Because if you do 6 quinceañeras in one night like we've done, right, we are touching thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and it didn't cost me nothing but my time to show up. And so I do believe that that's an important aspect of our campaign. And I think that it's something that it's going to carry us through. We have videos that have gone viral with 4 million views. You know, I called out my opponent because she had mariachis here in D.C. singing for her, and then they called her when they got detained, and she basically ignored them. I called her out. That was on a Saturday. On a Monday, she took her podium outside of the detention center and pulled them out. That's the power of pressure. That's the power of the algorithm. That's the power of attention. It moved her to go do something. If you would have told me in 2024 that we'd get a Republican parading an immigrant out of a detention center, like if she was Julian Castro, I would have told you were crazy. But that's exactly what pressure and social media, if you use it the right way, can move so many things.
We only have a few minutes left, but I want to ask you guys about this theory that's become, I think, popular among some parts of the Democratic Party, where if you really amp up the economic populism or just really sharpen your economic message, that you don't need to answer voters' questions on a bunch of social, cultural things. And I'm curious, if you guys, how would you guys think about that? And if you think voters are even going to be willing to hear what you have to say about healthcare or big tech or whatever it might be on the economy, if they don't trust you on the other things. And Bobby, you brought up guns earlier. I guess like another way to phrase this is someone going to listen to you on these issues if they don't first trust you on guns? What's been your all's experience in your districts?
You know, that's come up, I will tell you, when they ask me, are you for trans in women's sports? As an example, right? That comes up. And I say, look, let me tell you, this is, first of all, the person that cuts my hair is trans. And I love her dearly. She's a good person, right? She also has the strongest handshake of anybody I've ever. I'm a big sports fan, right? I love boxing. We have weight classes in boxing. I don't want to see a 250-pound man fight a 150-pound man because it's not fair, right? It's competitive. They try to make it even. I just say, I'm not for that. I don't agree with that. And they want to hear you take that stand, though. Ignoring it and saying like, well, I don't know, and this and that, makes them not trust you, right? And so, listen, I don't believe in discriminating anybody. I hate bullies. I hate people that call them names. I want to fight for their right to be equal, but you can't compete in a competitive industry if it's viewed as anti-competitive. And that's not hating on LGBTQ at all, right? It's just saying I don't agree with that. And I'm not afraid to answer those questions.
Yeah. I just say, if you're asking me that same question, do you believe boys should play in girls' sports? I say no. And then the second thing I'll say is, Western North Carolina is a rural place, and I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. It says pretty clearly in the Constitution. And I say, I've never lived in a big city, but here in Western North Carolina, we're rural folks. A lot of people own guns here, and it's a way of life here in rural America. I don't represent a very urban district, so I'm not going to pretend like I understand what it's like to live in an urban district. But here, we support the Second Amendment.
Well, that's our time. Thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Good.
Please welcome to the stage Jackie Payne, Elaine Kmark, James Carville, and Sarah McCammon.
Give everybody a minute to settle in. Well, hello. I'm Sarah McCammon. I'm a senior fellow at Third Way, formerly an NPR political correspondent, and happy to be here with this fine group. Before we get started, I just want to also ask all of you to follow along on our new podcast called What It Takes, with yours truly, talking to lots of really interesting and sort of groundbreaking people in the center-left space about the ideas that they bring to the table and how they're getting things done. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. The focus of this panel is electability, and I want to talk specifically about the electability of female candidates. That's one of the things we were asked to dig into today. And I'm joined by James Carville, who needs no introduction, but is a Democratic strategist who, of course, served as the lead strategist for Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign, among many other things. Next to James is Elaine Kmark, senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, co-author of the landmark 1989 paper, The Politics of Evasion. And next to Elaine is, yes, thank you, Jackie Payne, founder and executive director of Galvanize Action, which uses behavioral psychology, data science, and a lot of deep research to try to understand moderate female voters. So thanks to all of you for being here. Elaine, I actually want to start with you and the politics of evasion, because you've spent a lot of your career talking about the myths that Democrats believe, the things that they misunderstand. And as we talk about electability, particularly of female candidates, as we look ahead to 2028 and beyond, what myths do you think Democrats are believing right now?
Well, that's a good question. I think in some ways the myths are the same as they've always been, which is there's a belief out there particularly in our brothers and sisters on the left wing of our party, that somehow, if only we were more pure in our radicalism, more pure in our left-wingism, that there would be millions of people who never voted for us who would suddenly come to the polls. That has, that has never happened, and I can safely predict it's not going to happen. This is a center-right country, and until the Democratic Party really internalizes that, we're going to win sometimes when the other party screws up, but we are not going to create a fundamentally strong control over the political system.
James, I saw you gagging.
I gag at the thought that there are untapped, unresolved people that are just waiting for the bugle of true progressivism to come and rise in untold tens of millions of numbers. And as soon as they see that, oh, it's the stupidest goddamn thing I've ever heard. and they say, like, the establishment. What is the establishment? I look like establishment to you? And they just say the most inane, stupid, jackass things you can imagine, and they keep saying them. I'm serious. Like, oh, if we just nominated somebody, and, you know, there's 50 million people out there in America that could vote that didn't. Yeah, and every time they go find out who the 50 million are, more would vote for Republicans than vote for us.
But
even if you activated them all.
You do represent I won't say establishment, but I'll say a long-standing sort of faction of the party, right? I mean, you started out with the Clintons. A lot of voters don't feel like any of their institutions are working, including the parties. So how do centrist Democrats combat that?
First of all, I am not a centrist Democrat. Let me be clear. I'm a winning Democrat. My philosophy is winning. I don't care. I'm not center. I'm not moderate. I'm not progressive. I'm not anything. And if I see somebody, if I'm voting in a primary, and you have a female, a homosexual, African American, and a white male. If I think that the white male has the better chance to win a general election, I'm going to vote for it. If I think that the homosexual has a better chance, I'm going to vote for it. I am motivated almost primarily and exclusively. There's a guy, the founder of behavioral science, who won a Nobel Prize. His name is Richard Thaler. Get to know him. Last week, he was asked in the New York Times, what do you think the Democrats need to do? And he came up with a stunning answer. This is a man that's so smart, you might be the most influential economist that ever lived. He said they should nominate people who can win general elections. Thank you, Dr. Thaler. We're all on board with that radical idea.
You know, I want to explore a question, Jackie, actually a two-part question, really two separate questions, but they're connected. I want to talk about the electability of female candidates and also about what women think, because you've focused your research on moderate female voters who make up a really significant share of the electorate, right? And so from your perspective, based on the data that you've seen, based on the focus groups that you sit in, we've had 2 Democratic female nominees, and they both have lost. What has gone wrong?
So first I'm going to answer the first question around what women want. We started Galvanize Action 9 years ago, and we have done research constantly since then to try to understand moderate women with a special expertise in moderate white women because of their scale. There are almost 50 million moderate white women in this country. Right now, looking ahead to the midterms, if you look at the toss-up races, there are 24% or more of the vote share in a large number of those toss-ups. So if you don't understand what's going on with moderate women, and moderate white women specifically, you're not serious about winning. So that's really what we're doing, is trying to understand them. You've heard all day, affordability is the key. For moderate white women, the majority do not have a 4-year college degree. The majority are living in households under $100,000. Last month, we asked them about what's going on for them, and 82% said that because of the rise in gas prices due to the Iran war, they are changing how they're spending money, and almost 30% said that's that's changing how they're paying for groceries and healthcare, like real essential things. So they are in pain, and they are looking for leaders who are paying attention to them and who they trust will deliver for them. We can go on all day about the way that pain shows up, but that's mostly what they want. And you heard this on other panels from other constituencies. People want to feel seen, cared about, and that to trust that the leader will deliver. So what we've seen right now, they want affordability. What they're getting is chaos and corruption. About 80% say they are worried about corruption right now. And the bad news for Democrats is it's not just Republicans they think are corrupt. Studies show that they think that both Republicans and Democrats are corrupt. Yes, they're very upset with Trump. 66% of them disapprove of President Trump, but 76% of them disapprove of Congress, and 57% say they disapprove of both Democrats and Republicans. They do not feel like there is a party for them right now. So the good news for democracy is they still want to vote. And white women are have the highest turnout ratio of any demographic, right? So they still want to vote. For moderate white women, 73% tell us that they're planning to turn out in the midterms. But of those, 22% say they don't know who they're going to vote for yet. So there's an opportunity for candidates to gain their trust by talking to them about affordability and the way they feel seen. So I really want to lift up the power of the care economy. Women think about affordability and how they can care for their family. So people who can connect with them empathetically, and I also am struggling. I've struggled with childcare. My parents are in the hospital. I'm dealing with elder care. That kind of connection feels like they understand me and they're going to fight for me. So that's the general answer.
When it comes to the gender of the candidate, though, and let's talk about 2024, but we can also talk about 2016 if you'd like. Was the problem the gender, or to what extent might the problem been the gender of the candidate versus a policy problem, a messaging problem? And this is a question for all of you, really.
So, sexism exists out in the world with voters and in this room. We see it in our research, internalized sexism that women hold, and we see it with men voters. But Harris did not lose because she was a woman. I'd love to hear the other folks' views on this. In fact, if you look at white non-college women, they moved 4 points to the left. More of them voted for Harris than voted for Biden. So they didn't discount her because she was a woman, right? There's other reasons that Harris lost. It's not because she was a woman. When voters want to elect a president, they want someone who is strong, and that's where we see the sexism come in. What does strong mean? One of the things I want to point to right now is what has been going on with Spanberger and Slotkin and Cheryl. They are using their military backgrounds to check the box. You can trust that I'm strong enough. And when that box is checked, voters turn to, now are you going to focus on affordability? Do you care about me? And are you competent enough to get things done? That is what's going on there. And I'm really excited about all these military candidates, both because of it addresses that strength issue and because it addresses that sense of there's some honor there. I can trust you not to be corrupt. And the last thing I'll say is, the real problem with women getting elected is not the voters, it is the gatekeepers, the donors, who don't invest in women early because they're asking this question, can a woman win? So I think that the real challenge is for us not to undermine campaigns, because honestly, if voters want 180 degrees from Trump right now, it might well be a woman vet who shows that they are strong and competent and low drama.
Elaine, do you think that the problem is the voters or the donors or both?
Well, let me take this discussion to the presidency specifically, okay? Because I think the presidency is different than governors or senators or congressmen. The president is unique in the United States because he or she commands the biggest and most powerful military the world has ever seen. Let's be clear about that. All this, stuff we complain about, it is the biggest. Now, why do other countries, our allies, why have they had female prime ministers? Well, they have been commanders-in-chief, but let's face it, when the Russian tanks are coming into Eastern Europe in 2032, okay, it will not be the Prime Minister of Israel or the Prime Minister of Great Britain, as wonderful as their militaries are, who is calling the shots. It will be the President of the United States. That is a unique aspect of the presidency, which I don't think people know in particular, but I think they know in general. And that's why in the presidency especially, strength, as you showed in your studies, strength is important. I can predict here, I'll make this prediction, I probably won't be around by the time it comes true, so you can forget it, but the first female president of the United States will be a decorated combat veteran. Decorated combat veteran. Because nothing short of that gets you past the notion that women are not strong. And the presidency is different because it's not just strength in America, in the American context, it's strength in the entire world. And that's why I think we have been so late. I mean, Israel, Great Britain, so many of our allies have had female prime ministers.
Because people see the American presidency as requiring a different caliber, a different standard.
It's a different thing. I mean, the American military simply is a greater proportion of the American economy than any of our allies. That's what Trump has been complaining about for years, and with some justification that they spend more money on their own defense. We are a much, much bigger presence in the world, okay? We have bases. I mean, look, the military divides the world into NORTHCOM, SOUTHCOM, PACCOM, et cetera. We've got the world covered here, okay? We can move, the 82nd Airborne can be any place in the world in 32 hours. So this is a different thing for the United States than it is for other countries.
You know, James, Jackie was just talking a moment ago about several of the rising Democratic women who have this national security or military background, some of whom may have been talked about for the nomination or VP, but we'll see. You've said publicly recently that you think J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, is the strongest potential 2028 candidate.
I didn't say he was the strongest, no. I said if I got him at 12 to, I didn't say he was the strongest. I said if he gave me 12 to 1 odds, I would bet on him. Okay, 12 to 1. That's not, but
I stand corrected.
Look, I'm going to tell y'all a secret. I do not want this to leave the room. This is confidential. We got that straight? Okay. When it comes to picking a presidential nominee, there are two groups that matter 10 times any other groups in the Democratic Party. These two groups will determine the future of the party. First, Southern blacks. I know them. I grew up with them. They're not that progressive. James Clyburn famously said the most conservative person I ever knew in my life was my daddy. The second group, of huge importance in the party, are college-educated and post-bachelor white women. They just are. And they're not overly progressive as a group either. Now, back in March of 2024, I told Maureen Dowd, she put it in the New York Times, that I thought the problem Democrats had was our messaging had become over-feminized. And you should have heard the fucking eruption. Oh my God, I said that. Oh my God, sex is the worst thing. Oh my God, oh my. And you know what happened after the election? Shit, James, you're right. Okay, if we take our message inspiration from NPR, which is, in my opinion, a subversive organization, we're going to lose every election. Okay? And I don't care, run males, run females, run anything you want. But people want muscular, definitive leadership, all right? That's not, that speaks in these terms. By the way, it's not, you're not appealing to just males, appealing across a broad spectrum of people. But just so you understand whose hands the future of this party lies in, that's where it is. And it's been that way for a long time. And if you look, the number of blacks is a pretty stable number in the United States. The number of college graduates among females is not stable. It goes up and up and up. And anybody that's taught in our area, as I did for 16 years, knows these girls are just kicking the shit out of the boys. They all sit in the front row to answer the question first. The boys are sitting in the back giggling and whatever they do. And I would tell my male students, y'all better get off your ass. These women are kicking the crap out of you. And you see that over and over. So I'm enamored with winning, And if you want to win, you got to understand who decides.
You know, Jackie, when I worked for a certain news organization that I'm not going to...
You're never saying it again, right?
I sat in on one of your focus groups after the fact, and I was struck by, my biggest impression was just how complicated the feelings that some of these suburban women were, that they articulated about female candidates. You talked about internalized sexism, you talked about people in general sort of looking for strength, or Elaine talked about that. What do you hear, can you say more about that though? What do you hear from women in particular about their confidence in female leadership?
Yeah, so in our last survey in 2024, right, the day before the election, we asked moderate women who they were voting for. 48% of them voted for Harris, 44 voted for Trump. When in the focus group you're describing, that was the month before we were talking about, of those folks who had decided, why did they decide? Strength was a huge issue. And for the women who chose Trump, the way they talked about strength was the way that James is describing it. They said things like, we're in a knife fight in the alley, and you need someone who can have your back. And they wanted that kind of strength. The women who chose Harris, again, 48 to 44, the woman who chose Harris said, she's got diplomacy, I think she can handle this, and she will guide us through. And so it's an interesting question about whether diplomacy now is a version of strength that voters will want in this moment where they are rejecting the wars that Trump has got us into, right? So I do totally agree that we have got to check the strength box. You have got to feel like you can put the military in this leader's hands. And then what you really want is, who is someone who's going to be competent and create stability? And that's what they're looking for now.
I want to talk about the idea of ambition too, because I think this comes up a lot for female candidates. Jackie, your research, as I understand it, finds that women want strength, but they also want a certain amount of reluctance.
Oh yeah, I mean, the kind of woman leader they love is the one that had to step up. They don't like ambition. They don't want an ambitious woman leader. They want a reluctant leader, someone who's like, all right, I see that there was this mess and no one else is cleaning it up. Let me get in here and I can handle it. So reluctance is great. And that comes from Worthy Strategies research.
Now, from my perspective, I felt like, and maybe you guys disagree, but I felt like Kamala Harris did not lean into her gender or her race nearly as much as Hillary Clinton talked about her gender in 2016. I mean, her candidacy, her campaign stressed the historic nature of her candidacy. We all remember the slogan, "I'm with her." Question for all of you. What should candidates going forward, whether women or of other identities that maybe other than white men, what should they learn about the way that voters want them to talk about their identity, or maybe not talk about their identity?
Let me start here. I think you have to separate the presidency out from other offices. Women have had no problem recently becoming governors, not much of a problem becoming senators. There's a generational change. I mean, look at all the babies born to incumbent members of the House of Representatives. That was not happening several years ago. So younger women are just taking the plunge and they're getting into the House and they're just doing it all. I think there's a big generational change. The presidency is different. And so in the presidency, the weak and strength really, really matters in a way that I don't think it does for other levels of office.
If you're a female candidate, you really don't have to tell me. I can figure it out. Okay? And it may be that Jack is a good poster will say that there are certain preconceptions, that people think they're more honest, they're less likely, not as good on crime. It's just bullshit, all right? But you may have to specifically address a certain thing, you don't have to tell people you're black. They know that. You don't have to tell people you're female. Well, for the most part, they know that, all right? And I just think that your messaging, your deportment, the way you handle yourself,